July 8, 1944. 9 a.m. Saipan. Private First Class Guy Gabaldon stood on a clifftop overlooking the Pacific Ocean, surrounded by 800 Japanese soldiers and civilians. Most were armed. All were convinced Americans would torture and kill them. Behind him, hundreds more climbed from seaside caves to join the group. A Japanese officer waved a makeshift white flag, a skivvy shirt on a stick. Gabaldon was alone. No backup. No weapons, except a .45 caliber M19911 pistol and an M1 carbine. The nearest American patrol was 400 yards away. If the Japanese wanted to kill him, they could. 800 against 1. But they didn't kill him. They surrendered. All of them. To an 18-year-old Mexican-American kid from East Los Angeles who spoke backstreet Japanese. How? The answer is complicated. Determination, language skills, cultural understanding, desperation, timing, luck. But mostly, it's about a Mexican kid who grew up shining shoes on Skid Row, got adopted by a Japanese family, learned their language, and used it to save lives. Thousands of lives. Japanese and American. If you want to see how a teenager talked 800 enemy soldiers into surrendering, hit that like button. Subscribe for more impossible true stories. Back to Gabaldon. Guy Louis Gabaldon was born March 22, 1926 in Los Angeles, California. Boyle Heights neighborhood. East LA, fourth of 7 children. Mexican-American family. Father worked multiple jobs. Box maker. Machinist for Pacific Freight Express. Welder. Whatever paid. Mother stayed home with the kids. The family was poor. Depression-era poor. Gabaldon didn't realize it. They say we were poor, he later said. I didn't know that. We always had beans and tortillas. At age 10, Gabaldon started shining shoes. Skid Row, Main Street, Broadway, Hill Street, 5 cents per shine. He worked from dawn until late at night, sometimes all night. He made about $1 a day. Good money in 1936. His parents didn't worry. Different era, different neighborhood. Boyle Heights was diverse. Jews, Russians, Armenians, Mexicans, Japanese. The streets were relatively safe. The streets raised him. Gabaldon ran with the Mo Gang, multi-ethnic street gang. Not violent, just kids from the neighborhood, running errands, hanging around, occasional petty theft. Nothing serious. Street kid behavior. He had the typical attitude, disregard for authority, always in trouble, suspicious of everyone. That changed when he was 12. He met 2 Japanese-American brothers, Lyle and Lane Nakano, twins. Same age, same school, different world. The Nakano boys excelled academically. They were disciplined, respectful. They never got in trouble with the law. Their mother, Sumi Nakano, was a widow raising 5 children alone, strict, traditional, kind. Gabaldon was fascinated. He started spending time at their house. The Nakano family welcomed him, fed him, let him stay overnight. Eventually, he just moved in. His parents didn't object. Maybe they thought it was good for him. Maybe they had too many mouths to feed already. Maybe both. Gabaldon became the 6th child. Unofficial adoption. No paperwork, just family. He attended Japanese language school with the Nakano kids every day. Lane and Lyle went. Gabaldon tagged along. He learned Japanese, not textbook Japanese, not formal military Japanese, street Japanese, conversational. The kind you speak at home. Arguments with siblings, jokes with friends, complaints about homework, real language, authentic. He learned customs, culture, respect for elders, honor, shame, family loyalty, the importance of saving face, the concept of giri, obligation, the weight of on, debt. These weren't abstract concepts. They were daily life in the Nakano household. Bow when greeting, Remove shoes indoors. Eat rice with chopsticks. Never waste food. Apologize sincerely when wrong. These lessons would save hundreds of lives 6 years later. The contrast with street life was stark. Both shaped him. The streets taught him survival. Read people quickly. Identify threats. Move confidently. Never show fear. Talk your way out of situations. These were street skills. The Nakanos taught him humanity, empathy, cultural sensitivity, language, understanding. Both skill sets would matter. The streets prepared him for combat. The Nakanos prepared him for mercy. On December 7, 1941, Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. The United States entered World War II. President Franklin Roosevelt signed Executive Order 9066 on February 19, 1942. Japanese Americans on the West Coast were relocated to internment camps. The Nakano family received orders. Heart Mountain Relocation Center, Wyoming. Gabaldon was devastated. His second family was leaving. "I wanted to go to the internment camp with them," he later said. "But they wouldn't let me." Of course they wouldn't. He wasn't Japanese. He had no legal connection. The Nakanos left. Lane and Lyle were 16. They would later join the U.S. Army. 2nd Regimental Combat Team, most decorated unit in American military history. Japanese Americans fighting for America while their families were imprisoned. The irony was painful, but they served anyway. So did Gabaldon. Gabaldon went to Alaska. Fish cannery, laborer work, brutal hours, low pay, freezing conditions. He was 15, too young for military service. He waited. On March 22, 1943, his 17th birthday, he enlisted in the United States Marine Corps. He lied about some medical issues, perforated eardrum. The Navy had rejected him. The Marines were less particular, or more desperate. They needed bodies. He returned to California, Camp Pendleton, basic training, 8 weeks, physical conditioning, marksmanship, military discipline, infantry tactics. Gabaldon was competent, not exceptional. Average fitness, average marksmanship, average discipline. But he had something special. Language. During processing, a questionnaire asked, "Do you speak any foreign languages?" Gabaldon wrote, "Japanese." The Marines noticed. Japanese translators were rare, valuable. The military had formal language programs, trained linguists. But those took time. Gabaldon already spoke Japanese. Not perfectly, not formally, but functionally. That mattered. He was sent to enlisted Marine Japanese language school at Camp Elliott in San Diego. The instructors tested him. His Japanese was strange. Street slang mixed with household conversation. No military terminology. No formal grammar. But it was authentic. Native inflection. Proper pronunciation. Cultural understanding. The instructors approved him. Gabaldon was assigned to Headquarters and Service Company, 2nd Marine Regiment, 2nd Marine Division. Scout Observer. Translator. His job was intelligence gathering. Find enemy positions, count troops, capture prisoners for interrogation, not direct combat. Translation and scouting. Of course, on Saipan, everyone fought. By June 1944, Gabaldon was Private First Class, 18 years old. 5 foot 7 inches according to some sources, 5 foot 4 according to others. Either way, small. 140 pounds. Skinny. The division was heading to Saipan. Gabaldon didn't know what to expect. None of them did. Saipan is an island in the northern Mariana Islands, located 1,800 miles south of Tokyo, 12 miles long, 5 to 6 miles wide, volcanic terrain, mountains rising to 1,500 feet, dense jungle, cliffs, caves, thousands of caves, natural volcanic formations, perfect defensive positions. The island was a fortress. The island was critically important, strategically vital. Control of Saipan meant control of the Central Pacific. Airfields on Saipan could accommodate B-29 Superfortress bombers. The Boeing B-29, 4-engine heavy bomber. Range, 3,950 miles one way. The Japanese mainland was 1,500 miles away. Well within range. If America captured Saipan, they could bomb Japan directly. They could destroy Japanese industry. Shipyards, aircraft factories, oil refineries. They could firebomb cities. They could cut Japanese supply lines to the South Pacific. They could stage for invasion of the Philippines, then Iwo Jima, then Okinawa, then Japan itself. Saipan was the key to everything. Japan knew it. They defended Saipan with 31,000 soldiers. Lieutenant General Yoshitsugu Saito commanding. The troops were entrenched, prepared positions, artillery, machine guns, mortars, caves fortified into pillboxes, interconnected tunnel systems, pre-range defensive fire. The Japanese planned to kill every American who landed, or die trying. Civilians on the island, 22,000. Japanese colonists, Korean laborers, indigenous Chamorro people. Japanese military command issued orders. If defeat was imminent, civilians should commit suicide rather than surrender to Americans. Jump from cliffs, drown themselves, anything but surrender. Japanese propaganda was relentless. Americans would torture prisoners, rape women, murder children, eat babies. The propaganda was absurd, but effective. The civilians believed it. Surrender was not an option. Death before dishonor. Bushido code, samurai tradition, the emperor's will. Soldiers who surrendered dishonored themselves, dishonored their families, dishonored Japan. Better to die fighting. Better to commit suicide. Anything but surrender. This mentality would result in catastrophic civilian casualties. Thousands would die unnecessarily. But Guy Gabaldon would save hundreds, maybe over 1,000. The exact number is disputed, but the impact is undeniable. On June 15, 1944, an American armada arrived. 535 ships, 127 American troops, Marines from the 2nd and 4th Divisions, Army's 27th Infantry Division, Navy, Coast Guard. The largest amphibious assault in the Pacific Theater to date. Bigger than Tarawa, bigger than Guadalcanal. The invasion began at dawn. The Marines landed under heavy fire. Japanese artillery had pre-registered the beaches. Mortars, machine guns, rifles. The beaches were kill zones. Amtraks exploded. Marines died before reaching shore. Others died on the beach. Some drowned in shallow water, weighed down by equipment. The casualties were severe, but the Marines advanced. They always advanced. Gabaldon landed with the second wave, his first combat, 18 years old. He carried an M1 carbine, 15-round magazine, semi-automatic, effective range 300 yards, lighter than the M1 Garand, less stopping power, but adequate. He also carried a .45 caliber M19911 pistol, 7 rounds, 45 ACP, close-range weapon, serious stopping power. He wasn't expected to fight directly. He was a translator, scout. But on Saipan, everyone fought. The first days were chaos, artillery bombardments, banzai charges, night infiltration attacks, Japanese soldiers screaming, "Banzai! Banzai!" Charging with bayonets, suicide attacks. The Marines held. Barely. Casualties mounted. 2,000 Americans dead or wounded in the first 3 days. But the beachhead expanded. The Marines pushed inland, toward Henderson, wrong island, toward the airfield, toward the interior, toward the civilians. June 15, 1944. Night. Gabaldon was assigned to a defensive position. Standard orders for translators. Stay safe. Wait for prisoners to be brought to you. Translate. Interrogate. Gather intelligence. Don't go looking for trouble. Gabaldon ignored orders. He left camp. He went into enemy territory. Alone. "The first night I was on Saipan, I went out on my own," he later said. "I always worked on my own." Why? Street kid mentality. Rules were suggestions. Authority was negotiable. Orders were flexible. Gabaldon saw opportunity. Japanese were close. Hiding in jungle. He spoke their language. He could capture them. Why wait? He moved through darkness. Jungle. Thick vegetation. He was quiet. Street kid skills. Alert. Reading the environment. He found 3 Japanese soldiers. They were moving through the jungle. Careless. Talking. Not expecting Americans. Gabaldon ordered them to drop their weapons. In Japanese. "Buki wo sutero." Drop your weapons. One soldier hesitated, then raised his rifle. Gabaldon fired first. M1 carbine. Single shot. The soldier fell. The other 2 froze. Gabaldon ordered them to surrender. They complied. He marched them back to American lines. 2 prisoners. First night, his commanding officer, Captain John Schwabe, was furious. Gabaldon had left his post without permission. Unauthorized patrol. Violation of orders. Dangerous. Reckless. Schwabe threatened court-martial. Gabaldon didn't care. He knew his method worked. The next night, he did it again. June 16th, night. Gabaldon left camp. Again unauthorized. He moved deeper into enemy territory. He found a cave. Japanese position. He could hear voices inside. Multiple soldiers. Maybe a dozen. Maybe more. He approached carefully. 2 guards outside. Sentries. Gabaldon shot them. M1 carbine. Quick shots. Suppressed by jungle noise. He moved to the side of the cave entrance. He couldn't enter. That was suicide. Cave fighting favored defenders. So he used psychology. He yelled in Japanese. "Omae tachi wa kakomarete iru. Kofuku suru shikanai." "You're surrounded. You must surrender," he explained. In Japanese. Street Japanese. Conversational tone. Not military commands. He sounded like someone who knew them. Someone who understood them. He said Americans had surrounded the cave. If they didn't surrender, they would die. Flamethrowers. The Americans would burn them alive. But if they surrendered, they would receive food, water, medical care for the wounded, good treatment, no torture, no execution. The emperor was wrong. Americans were not monsters. He waited. Silence, then movement. Japanese soldiers emerged, slowly, cautiously, unarmed, hands raised. 10, 20, 30. They kept coming. 50 soldiers, from one cave. Gabaldon was stunned. 50 prisoners, 1 Marine. He marched them back to American lines. Dawn was breaking. Marines on patrol saw him. 1 Marine. 50 Japanese prisoners walking in a line. Unbelievable. Captain Schwabe was still angry, but he was also practical. Gabaldon's methods were unorthodox, dangerous, individually risky. But they worked. 50 prisoners without a firefight, no Marine casualties. Intelligence value was enormous. 50 prisoners meant 50 interrogations, information on positions. Strength, supplies, morale. Gabaldon had delivered intelligence gold. Schwabe made a decision. He authorized Gabaldon to operate as a lone wolf. Independent patrols. No supervision. Do whatever works. Bring back prisoners. Report only when you return. Gabaldon accepted. Perfect assignment for a street kid who never followed rules anyway. Over the next 3 weeks, Gabaldon operated alone. Nightly patrols. Sometimes he went during day, whenever he wanted. He developed a refined method. Find Japanese positions, caves mostly. Saipan was full of caves, hundreds. Natural volcanic formations, perfect defensive positions. Dark, cool, protected from bombardment. The Japanese hid there. Gabaldon found them. His approach was consistent. Kill or capture guards. quietly if possible, gunfire if necessary, then negotiate. His Japanese wasn't perfect. He spoke what he called backstreet Japanese. East LA Japanese mixed with Jap military lingo, he said. Street slang, household conversation. Some military terms he picked up from interrogations. But it was authentic. The Japanese soldiers recognized it. He sounded like someone who had lived with Japanese families. Someone who understood their culture. Not an enemy. Not exactly a friend. But someone who knew them. Someone who might tell the truth. Gabaldon's pitch evolved. He refined it through repetition. 20 times, 30 times. Each negotiation taught him something. What worked, what didn't. He learned to read his audience. Desperate soldiers responded to promises of food. Wounded soldiers responded to promises of medical care. Honorable soldiers responded to assurances about treatment. He adapted. He became extraordinarily effective. His standard pitch: "You're surrounded. I have Marines with me behind the trees. If you don't surrender, we'll kill you. Flamethrowers. Artillery. You'll be roasted alive. Buried alive. But if you surrender, you'll get food. Rice. Medical care for the wounded. Good treatment. The American ships offshore can shell this entire island. You've seen the bombardments. You know it's true. You've already lost. Surrender and live. Go home to Japan after the war. See your families again. The Emperor's order to die was based on lies. Americans don't torture prisoners. I know, because I grew up with Japanese families in America. I understand your culture. I speak your language. You can trust me." Sometimes it worked immediately. Sometimes it took hours. Sometimes it didn't work. When it didn't work, he threw grenades into caves and moved on. Brutal. But war is brutal. When it worked, he brought back prisoners. 10, 15, 20 at a time. By late June, he had captured over 300 Japanese soldiers and civilians. His reputation grew. The kid who talks Japanese. The crazy Mexican who walks into caves. Gabby. They called him Gabby. He talked. A lot. The Japanese forces on Saipan were collapsing. American advances were relentless. Superior firepower, naval bombardment, artillery, air support, tank support. The Marines pushed forward. The Army pushed from the south. Japanese casualties mounted. Supplies dwindled. Food ran out. Water ran out. Ammunition ran out. Medical supplies ran out. The wounded died from infection. The living starved. The inevitable was approaching. Lieutenant General Yoshitsugu Saito, commander of Japanese forces, knew the island was lost. On July 6, 1944, he issued final orders. Gyokusai, honorable death. Every able-bodied Japanese soldier would participate in one final attack. Destroy Henderson. No, wrong island again. Destroy the American forces. Kill 7 Americans each. Die with honor. Saito committed ritual suicide after issuing the order. Seppuku, traditional, honorable. His chief of staff, Vice Admiral Chuichi Nagumo, the same officer who commanded the Pearl Harbor attack, also committed suicide. The leadership was dead. The survivors would follow final orders. That night, July 2nd into July 7th, thousands of Japanese soldiers launched a banzai attack, the largest banzai charge in the Pacific War. 4,000 to 5,000 soldiers, some armed with rifles, some with bayonets, some with swords, some with grenades, some with nothing, just screaming and charging. Banzai! Banzai! 10,000 years, live forever, die with honor. They attacked American positions in waves, screaming, charging, dying, hand-to-hand combat, bayonets, knives, rifle butts, entrenching tools, fists, brutal, savage, desperate. The Marines held. Barely. The Army units broke in places. Japanese soldiers overran positions. captured artillery, turned it on Americans. The battle lasted 15 hours, from midnight to 3 p.m. the next day. By the end, over 4,000 Japanese soldiers were dead. Hundreds of Americans were dead. The attack failed. The survivors retreated to caves near Marpy Point. The cliffs, Suicide Cliff, Banzai Cliff, they would call them later. Gabaldon was behind enemy lines when the attack happened. He had infiltrated Japanese territory on July 6th. Evening patrol, looking for more prisoners. The Banzai attack cut him off. Thousands of Japanese soldiers between him and American lines. He couldn't return. He hid. Jungle. Rocks. Caves. He watched. He heard screaming, gunfire, explosions, all night. He survived. Luck, skill, both. July 7th, 1944, dawn. After the failed Banzai attack, surviving Japanese forces retreated to caves near the cliffs. Marpy Point, northern tip of Saipan. Hundreds of soldiers, hundreds of civilians. They were preparing for mass suicide. The cliffs were 800 feet high, straight drop, ocean below. Rocks. The Japanese planned to jump. Men, women, children, elderly, wounded, all of them. Death before surrender. The propaganda said Americans would torture them, rape, murder. Better to die. They believed it. Gabaldon saw them gathering. July 8th, morning. He had spent the night behind enemy lines. He was exhausted, hungry, thirsty, scared. But he saw opportunity. Hundreds of Japanese. If he could talk to them, if he could convince them, he could save hundreds of lives. Or he could die trying. Street kid decision. Risk it. He captured 2 Japanese soldiers near the cliff edge. Not difficult. They were exhausted, defeated, traumatized. He talked with them. Long conversation. Maybe an hour. He convinced them that continued fighting meant death. Certain death. Flamethrowers would roast them alive. American artillery would bury them in the caves. The war was over for Saipan. America had won. The Emperor's order to die was based on lies. Americans didn't torture prisoners. Gabaldon knew this because he grew up with Japanese families in America. He understood their culture. He spoke their language. He could be trusted. Surrender was the only option for survival. He told them to go into the caves, talk to the others, tell everyone an American Marine was offering surrender terms. Safe passage. Food, medical care, no torture, no execution. Return to Japan after the war. The 2 soldiers agreed. Maybe they believed him. Maybe they were just tired of war. Maybe both. They went into the caves. Gabaldon waited. 1 hour. Alone on the cliff. 800 Japanese soldiers and civilians were below. If they refused, they would kill him. If they accepted, he would achieve the impossible. He waited. An hour later, movement. A Japanese officer emerged from a cave. Chui, first lieutenant. He approached Gabaldon. They talked. Gabaldon explained the terms. The officer asked about treatment. Gabaldon promised good treatment. He pointed to the American ships offshore, hundreds of ships. The officer could see them. Overwhelming force. The war was lost. The officer asked about honor. Gabaldon explained. Surrender wasn't dishonor. It was survival. Protecting the soldiers under his command, protecting the civilians. That was honor. The officer considered, then accepted. He returned to the caves. He gave orders. Japanese soldiers began emerging, slowly, cautiously, unarmed, hands raised. Then civilians, women, children, elderly, wounded. More soldiers, more civilians. The stream continued. 50, 100, 200. They kept coming. Gabaldon was overwhelmed. He was alone. 1 Marine, hundreds of Japanese. He needed help. But he needed to maintain control. He organized them. Brilliant improvisation. He separated soldiers from civilians. Then separated wounded from healthy. This created groups. Smaller groups. more manageable. It also consumed time, kept everyone busy, prevented panic, prevented anyone from changing their mind. More kept coming. 300, 400, 500. Still coming. Gabaldon sent one prisoner with the makeshift white flag, the skivvy shirt on a stick. Signal American patrols. Marines saw it. They approached cautiously, thought it was a trap. Then they saw. One Marine. Hundreds of Japanese prisoners, still surrendering. Unbelievable. They called for reinforcements. More Marines arrived. Lieutenant Robert High, intelligence officer, arrived. He was ecstatic. He saw the intelligence value immediately. By mid-morning, the count was final. 800 plus. Some sources say 807. Some say 800. Some say more than 800. All agree, approximately 800. Japanese soldiers and civilians, all surrendered to Guy Gabaldon, 18 years old, 5'4" or 5'7" depending on source, 140 pounds. Mexican-American kid from East LA, the largest individual capture in U.S. military history. One person. 800 prisoners. Unprecedented. Lieutenant High was ecstatic. Guy, you did it. Over 800. Can you imagine the intelligence information we'll get from this bunch? It will certainly help us in the coming Tinian campaign. Gabaldon was exhausted. He later wrote, "My God, it's over. I did it. I grabbed a K ration, devoured it, laid down on a blanket and passed out. Man, did I ever sleep what was left of that night. 800 people who would have died, jumped from cliffs, died in caves, shot by Marines, dead. Instead, they lived. Because one teenager spoke their language and convinced them to trust him. The mathematics are simple. 800 lives saved. That's the measurement of extraordinary. The Battle of Saipan continued until July 9th, 1944. American victory. Cost, 3,426 American dead, 13,099 wounded. Japanese cost, approximately 29,000 military dead, 22,000 civilian dead. Thousands jumped from the cliffs. Suicide Cliff, Bonsai Cliff. They believed the propaganda. They feared American torture. They died unnecessarily. Gabaldon's 800 didn't jump. They lived. Gabaldon's unit moved to Tinian, neighboring island, 7 miles south of Saipan. Another invasion. July 24th, 1944. Gabaldon continued operating. More lone wolf patrols, more prisoners, hundreds more. His total capture count for Saipan and Tinian, approximately 500. Numbers vary by source. Some say 1-300. Some say 500 words. Some say more. All agree. Over $1,000. The most by any individual in U.S. military history. After Tinian was secured, Gabaldon returned to Saipan. Japanese holdouts remained. Guerrillas, diehards refusing to surrender. The Marines hunted them. Gabaldon joined the hunts. His language skills were useful. But guerrilla warfare is dangerous. Ambushes, traps, unexpected contact. August 1944. Gabaldon was on patrol, hunting Japanese holdouts. Machine gun ambush. Japanese gunner opened fire. Gabaldon was hit. Multiple bullets, right arm. Serious wounds. His war ended there. Medical evacuation to Hawaii. Treatment. Recovery. Multiple surgeries. The wounds were severe. Permanent damage. Limited arm mobility. Chronic pain. But he survived. Honorable discharge. Medically retired. War over for Guy Gabaldon. On July 15, 1944, Captain John Schwab recommended Gabaldon for the Medal of Honor. The recommendation went through channels. Battalion, Regiment, Division, Fleet Marine Force Pacific, Navy Department. The case was strong. 800 prisoners in one day. 500 total. More than any individual in U.S. military history. More than Sergeant Alvin York in World War I. York captured 132 Germans. Gabaldon captured 1,500 Japanese. The comparison favored Gabaldon. General Holland Smith, commanding general, reviewed the recommendation. He compared it to other Medal of Honor recommendations. He made a decision. He downgraded it. Silver Star instead. Extraordinary heroism, but not Medal of Honor level. Why? Several factors. Gabaldon operated alone. Few witnesses for most captures. No officers present during the 800 prisoner surrender. No verification of exact numbers for each patrol. Unconventional tactics. Unauthorized patrols. Rules, violations. The military valued discipline. Gabaldon violated discipline constantly. Effective, but undisciplined. The Medal of Honor required both effectiveness and adherence to military standards. Gabaldon had effectiveness. He lacked adherence. There was another factor. Unspoken. Gabaldon was Mexican-American. 1944. Racial prejudice existed, in the military, in America. Hispanic soldiers received fewer decorations than white soldiers for equivalent actions. This is documented. Historical fact. Did racism affect Gabaldon's case? Possibly. Probably. No proof. But the pattern suggests it. In 1957, Gabaldon appeared on This Is Your Life, NBC television show. Popular. Millions of viewers. Marines who served with him verified his story. Captain Schwabe, Colonel Walter Layer, Major James High, intelligence officers, enlisted men, all confirmed. 800 prisoners, July 8, 1944. Verified on national television. The story was true. In 1960, the Silver Star was upgraded to Navy Cross, second highest military decoration. Recognition of extraordinary heroism. Secretary of the Navy, William B. Frank, signed the order. The citation read, "For extraordinary heroism while serving with Headquarters and Service Company, 2nd Marines, 2nd Marine Division, in action against enemy Japanese forces on Saipan and Tinian, Mariana Islands, from 15th of June to 1st August, 1944. Acting as a Japanese interpreter, Private First Class Gabaldon displayed extreme courage and initiative in single-handedly capturing enemy civilian and military personnel. Working alone in front of the lines, he daringly entered enemy caves, pillboxes, buildings, and jungle brush, frequently in the face of hostile fire, and succeeded in not only obtaining vital military information, but in capturing well over 1,000 enemy civilians and troops. The citation was accurate, but the fight for the Medal of Honor continued. Latino leaders campaigned, members of Congress, veterans organizations. For decades, they argued Gabaldon deserved the Medal of Honor. The Navy disagreed. The upgrade stopped at Navy Cross. Gabaldon died without receiving it. Post-war life was complicated for Gabaldon. He struggled with civilian life, street kid, war hero, translator. He didn't fit anywhere. He moved to Mexico. Business ventures, some successful, some failed. In 1960, Hollywood made a movie about him, Hell to Eternity, starring Jeffrey Hunter. 6 foot tall, blue-eyed, Scottish-American, playing a 5'4" Mexican-American from East LA. The absurdity wasn't lost on anyone. Gabaldon joked about it. Jeffrey was jealous that he didn't have my good looks. In 1964, Gabaldon ran for U.S. Congress, California District. He lost. Politics wasn't his strength. In 1970, he returned to Saipan, ran a seafood business, children's camp. He lived there for 20 years. The island where he saved 800 lives became his home. In 1990, he published a memoir, Saipan, Suicide Island, detailed account of his experiences, honest, technical, controversial. Some questioned his numbers. Robert Sheeks, USMC Japanese language officer, called him a relentless self-promoter, claimed he exaggerated. The controversy continued, but the evidence supported Gabaldon. Multiple witnesses verified the 800 prisoner surrender. Intelligence records confirmed. Marine combat reports documented. The prisoners existed. They were counted. They were interrogated. The number is accurate. Guy Gabaldon convinced 800 Japanese to surrender on July 8, 1944. That's historical fact. Guy Gabaldon died August 31, 2006. Heart disease. Age 80. He was buried with full military honors at Arlington National Cemetery. The funeral was attended by family, Marines, veterans. The Nakano brothers, Lyle and Lane, both survived World War II. Both served in the 422nd Regimental Combat Team, Europe. Both remained close with Gabaldon until death. Family remained family. Even through war, even through internment camps, even through everything. They were brothers. Always. Gabaldon's legacy is profound. He demonstrated that language saves lives. Cultural understanding creates options. Individual initiative matters. One person can change outcomes. 500 people survived because Guy Gabaldon chose persuasion over killing. They returned to Japan after the war. They raised families. They rebuilt their country. Their descendants live today. Thousands of people exist because Guy Gabaldon spoke Japanese and had the courage to walk alone into enemy territory. The most powerful weapon isn't always a gun. Sometimes it's a language, and the will to use it. That's the lesson. That's the legacy. That's the truth. If this story moved you, hit that like button. Every like helps preserve these stories. Subscribe for more accounts of extraordinary courage. Drop a comment. Tell us where you're watching from. Thank you for making sure Guy Gabaldon's story is never forgotten. Heroes come in all forms. This one was 5'4", spoke backstreet Japanese, and saved lives. Remember him.